Okay, so I try to implement the method of standing in line to the microphone, but you Israelis don't want to. So we're just going to do a free-for-all, and whoever gets to ask the question, ask it.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
you can sit and just pass the mic.
So I know it was a discussion, but I feel like I haven't heard your vision of your full vision of what causes anti-Semitism on the left and on the right. So I would actually like to hear it.
Okay. So the summary is that it's this very primitive, simple vision that my problems is because of someone else. That's one part of it. The other part of it is that it's very easy to, let's say, to point out at the Jews as a different entity. So we need to find an outsider. The other element is that Israel is very successful. So this is an in-your-face in the left. And the other element is that the right has absolutely, completely lost it. And they need to find some very, again, primitive way to point out who is in and who is out. And the more they lean towards, let's say, Christian nationalism, that now this is our identity, because we don't have ideas to be our identity, right? So we have to find something else. And then they will more and more then fall back towards this, we are Christians, so they are the enemies of Christianity. That's my summary. And it's work on progress, figuring out right-wing antisemitism, the modern one, because it's also a modern phenomenon. I'm still trying to figure it out and properly grasp it in a better way.
So let's move to objectivism. I mean, the idea of this panel is to, I know I still have a lot of questions of clarity, all the way from metaphysics to epistemology to ethics, politics. We can continue to talk about even aesthetics and all of so. So think about for a second, I'll give you a moment to reflect. Or what are the things in objectivism that you're still struggling with? That you still like, something doesn't add up. I don't know how to integrate it with everything else I know. If it's an opinion you have, if it's something that you've seen that you cannot explain. I'll give you an example just to kind of stir up the conversation. I had an argument with someone, and we had a conversation about femininity and masculinity. And we've looked at statistics, and I saw that 16% of engineers in the world are women and 84% are men. And she said, 16% are women. 16. And she said, it's all because of cultural bias. All because of cultural bias. If you remove cultural bias, then it will be 50-50. And I said, no, it won't. Because I think that there's a reason why women biologically are attracted on average, if you think about a distribution, to things that have more to do with people, and rather than, let's call it, material sciences. And it took me a month to go into objectivism and to study, but ask a lot of objectivist intellectuals to figure out if my view is right or wrong. So this is an idea. I'm going to answer that question and leave it hanging in the air. But are those the kind of things where you still, I know, I understand objectivism. I've read everything. I've read OPAR 3 times. Still, what are those things in your life? And it could be anything from, we talked about happiness. We talked about, ethics. We talked about politics. That is still not sitting well in your mind. Yeah.
Can I throw an idea, and I want to hear your thoughts? Because in the previous discussion, there was a lot of talk about how the left is emotional. Yeah. They are emotional. And when I hear this, it makes me angry because I am emotional, and we are the real emotional. They are guilt-driven, fear-driven, blind. And although we are not driven by our emotions in the sense of I make decisions about what I feel in the moment, I am the one that, because of my judgments and achievements in using my mind, am able to feel real deep emotions, am able to experience reality, and am able to enjoy the positive emotions where they are, like you call them emotional, but maybe emotionalistic is a better term. But even that, it's like, when I see them, I see fear-driven, guilt-driven, not emotionalistic in the sense of, they have so much passions and they want to do so much. I don't view those people like that at all.
I'll let Aaron answer this because I think it's a deep philosophical issue. Just to clarify the terms, By emotionalistic, I mean use your emotional reaction as your thinking method. The fact that I get an emotion from my subconscious mind is I regard it as a primary. I don't argue with the fact that I feel the hostages are so miserable there. It drives me crazy. I feel so empathetic about them, right? So that's the fact. That's the primary. I start from that. That's a point that reality shows me. And now all my thinking is done under this base of I'm empathetic to the suffering of the hostages, right? So that's what I mean when I say emotionalistic, in the sense that I use my emotions as primary and justifications to do a lot of other thinking to satisfy my emotions. And I think that's what Ayn Rand is referring to when she's talking about reason versus emotion as means of survival.
Yeah, I think one of the things is useful. I think it's one of the things that's useful is they're emotional, and you're saying I'm emotional, and they're saying, well, it's more emotionalism. Are you being driven by your emotions, led by your emotions, as opposed to just feeling strongly about your emotions because you have strong judgments about things, and that would be natural. I think it can be useful also just to switch it from the emotional realm to the cognitive realm. It's irrationalism. I mean, you can call, and one form of irrationalism is the kind of thing that takes, that flies by the seat of their pants on their emotional responses. That's a kind of a form in which irrationalism can take, but if you switch it to the cognitive realm and make it less about they're emotional, I think there's less muddiness. It's an irrationalism. And so, well, what's irrational about it is they're panicking. But I think the other thing, to bring it back to the cognitive rather than the emotional, it's why are they in a state of panic? Why are they running around with the chicken with the head cut off? You know, like why are they in this state? They weren't in that. Were they in that state like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And I think there's something self-made about that condition. We were talking about tribalism and the way you said tribalism makes you stupid. And it's a kind of philosophy can make you stupid too if you accept the wrong ideas, because the conclusions you come to, they don't make any sense. But when it gets back to, it's irrationalism, but then if you also put it cognitively, I think there's something self-made about that emotional state, that it's not like, they don't have a map, or they have the wrong map. It sounds too much like, but if they had a right map, then they'd be okay. I think it's more that they've abandoned something. That's what it feels like. They've abandoned some kind of cognition. They've abandoned the attempt or even to maybe have the confidence to think that, reason is the way we sort this through. When it's end of days thinking, it's kind of like, we got to do something. We got to get our guy. And it's not just the Jews about the right. It's the illegals and the immigrants and the Mexicans and China. And it's like they're throwing any kind of spitball out, and it's not like they have a formed view exactly. It sounds like a lot of rationalization for that, and I think there's something self-made about that, and that's also cognitive. I think that's at root. If that's helpful, I don't know.
I want to say another thing, just to help you with the way you look at people. It's amazing to me to see how compartmentalization works. I have several friends. In their jobs, they're amazing, unbelievable, so effective, so rational. Thought leaders. When you move to another realm, they could be conspiracy theorists at the worst kind. So another thing that makes it really, really hard with the way it's not that they're all emotionalists. They're emotionalists in specific aspects in their life, specific politics, which I think is harder than theoretical physics, and yet everybody thinks they're experts. Every person in the world thinks they're experts, they have an opinion. Like, who are you to have an opinion about politics? It's so damn hard, right? So another thing to just make sure, don't judge people completely as emotionalists. Make sure that you say, what are they emotionalists about? My mother is a really good person, and there are areas in her life she's an emotionalist, right? So that just to add another dimension of that, it's just complexity.
Yeah, just to throw another question on your question. In agreement with you, where was their emotional reaction on October 7? We watched in live screening a horror movie. Something that if you saw that at the cinema and said this happened to some Polynesian islanders 3,000 miles away, all would be down in tears. And they saw it happening in real time, and they were like, eh. So I also am not bought that they're driven by emotion. We're giving them too much credit. We're cutting them too much slack.
Yeah. Sorry, you had it first.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, when thinking about the issue of like moral judgment in objectivism, which is like a big thing, which the movement is sort of defined on that issue, and sort of like the parts of the movement and splits. And when I think about it, it's very easy for me to think about it in like politics and in these terms. But when I think about it in my life, it's sort of hard for me to think about. I've dealt with like immoral people and it harmed me. I can think about like having relationships with people that were like incompatible with me. This was a mistake, but like dealing with immoral people that this harmed me. I thought I might ask you, and you're like older and have more like experience than like I do, and it would be interesting. How do you think of like moral judgment and like the justification for the idea of moral judgment? How does it improve your life, or like not exercising it like harms your life?
You've heard the notion of red flags on a date, right? Like you see some things on a first date and it's like, ooh, I don't want to go there. Moral judgment for me is a survival tool in a way. It's a self-preservation tool. It helps you avoid danger. You know how some, like in nature, some animals look horrendous because it gives you the sign, stay away. That's basically moral judgment, that if I go there, it's going to be dangerous. So you don't do it because Ayn Rand told you so, and otherwise, Onkar will be angry. You do this because for a very, to put it like selfish reason. You do it because you want to protect yourself from things that are not going to be for you. So you should have moral judgment even if you live alone in a castle. Oh, yeah.
He's really good.
No question about that.
Okay. I want to add another. One second. So, by the way, if there's a microphone, just make sure. But just to continue. Yeah. Another thing. So think about moral judgment from a perspective of your values. That's how I think about it, because one of the key ideas that I find very clarifying whenever I think about complex issues is to go back to values. Okay, so I live my life. My life is the standard of value. The fact that I am living this life and I want to live it my way with the things that are important to me. That's the perspective. Now come people, right, into my life. What do they have to offer me, right? So one has to offer me teaching. Another one is offering me trade. Another one is a donor. Another one is a romantic relationship that I can have with that woman, right? And so on and so forth. If you look at people from that perspective, then the standard of judging them becomes very clear. Is he a good teacher? Can I benefit? Is she a good partner for me? Is the relationship with I don't know, a colleague and a boss, whatever that is. And the moral judgment is just applying your judgment towards that relationship. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that people are very complicated. Going back to the compartmentalization and different facets, you're dealing with entities, people who are super complicated, multifaceted, multidimensional. They're really good at one thing. They're really bad at another. They're really attractive, but they're not aligned with you. Let me give you an idea of let's say a romantic relationship. You find an amazing woman. You go on a date with her. She's an amazing chemist. Fascinating discussion. For 2 hours, you're just exchanging wow, wow, wow. When the dessert comes to the table, she says, yeah, but I'm a devout Christian. Wow, what a shock, right? So just to give you the complexity, you're not dealing with, do I like this car or that car or whatever. Those are complicated entities. So moral judgment is from the standard of my life, and what I want. And that's the problem, because most people don't take the time to clarify what that standard is. Assuming you know what that is, which is 90% of the work, now let me apply it about that person. With everything that that person offers me, right? The plus, the minuses, the so-so, and so, what is my judgment? What is the value I ascribe to that person? And that defines how much time, effort, love, whatever you want to exchange with them, you should change. And that is something very, very hard to do. What I think you're referring to Kelly, right? And all of that. He's negating the need to apply that standard very thoroughly and non-compromisingly to people and their ideas. So that woman that I dated, which was an amazing chemist, but I was like, it's a no, it's an X. Go away. Going back to like, it's going to drive me crazy to think that I'm going to be associated with the devout Christian. So it's about you. Now, she could be the perfect partner for someone else, right? But one of the things that I find super, and I think you're touching on the most complicated aspect of human life, is how to judge other people. And I can talk for an hour about it, but I don't know if you wanted to add something, or we'll go to the next question. Yeah, Zev.
Okay, so maybe a word on the apparent conflict between free will and physics. Physics as in, either mechanistic determinism or even the probabilistic way of our understanding of quantum mechanics seems somehow unexplainable by, or free will cannot be explained by it.
I haven't studied physics, but I think the challenge there is that I don't think the challenge is to know whether you make choices. I don't think the challenge is to know whether you deliberate. I don't think the challenge is whether you experience yourself as exerting control or failing to exert control. I think those things are introspectable. I think the challenge is then to integrate that so it's to know that you make choices and that, okay, fair enough. I think we all know that. And at the same time, we don't all have a theory of free will that enables you to integrate that with a wider theory, well, not wider necessarily, it's usually narrower, but with the kinds of causal relationships that we observe and we've been so successful applying to the physical world, to asteroids, to like planetary motion, to all sorts of things in the physical world. We seem to have a very successful model of understanding causality for those kinds of things, and at a very high level of predictability. And yet, so there's a question then. It's what's the relationship between that kind of causality that we understand in the physical world and the kind of causality that's involved in choice and free will? And of course, the terrain has been pretty well laid out for quite some time. It's either they don't integrate. That's one potential answer. It's free will simply isn't causal. It's acausal, contra-causal, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. It just happens. It's not a causal phenomenon at all. That's one kind of answer. That's not objectivism's answer. Or it's free will interest. It's an illusion. So either it seems like it does introspectively, and like I'm not going to deny it, sure does, but it can't be so. And if you say, well, why? It's, well, unless it's going to be magic, right? And it's just just happens, which doesn't seem very satisfying. Then it has to be causal. But if it's causal, it has to be kind of causal in the same way physics and billiard balls and whatever function. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's the right way to think about the alternative. But it is the most common way, by far, of thinking about it. It's if it's not causal, it's magic, it's mysticism, it's spooky, it's outside of science, unscientific. or it's causal, which makes a hell of a lot more sense, and that means deterministic. And I don't think you can equate, or I think you need a wider conception of causality, and I think this is what Rand's perspective is. You need a wider conception of causality that integrates both the kind of causation we observe in physical objects, material objects, and so on, and the kind of causation that we observe in choice. And you know, what Ayn Rand does is she goes back to a conception of causality where the entity is the cause, that it's not this state of affairs caused this state of affairs, and this event caused this event, which caused this event, and it's all about event causation. I think she thinks of it as more as, I guess some philosophers today call this agent causation. It's the idea that an agent can initiate a causal sequence. So this is the thing, is what you need for free will is the ability of an entity to be able to initiate a causal sequence rather than simply being the conduit or necessary outcome of a prior state of affairs or a prior event. And from Rand's perspective, she thinks volition, that's what volition is. It's a in this case, a consciousness, a living organism, is able to choose to exercise its cognitive faculty, and that is a fundamental choice, and there's nothing underneath it, not at the fundamental level, that it's able to initiate, put it this way, employ its cognitive faculty, and that's at a kind of at a ground level. That's just, there's nothing underneath that. It's just that man has that ability, and it's something we can observe introspectively. It's axiomatic. So if you want to think about her basic case for it, it's axiomatic. In other words, it's assumed in all subsequent cognition. And the way she shows that, and the way you sort of show or one aspect of an axiom, one clue that it's an axiom, is that all subsequent thinking relies on it. And so her view is, if you took the determinist view seriously, I mean, determinists won't accept this by and large, but if you took the determinist view seriously, the theory of determinism is, I have the correct theory about causation, but I have no control whatsoever over any of my thinking. But I'm right and you're wrong. If you, the advocate of free will, has no control whatsoever over any of his thinking, and I know Tal, so no. But so it's like, I have no control over any of my thinking. I have no control over any of my judgments. I don't have any control over what I take to be true or take to be false or take to be well-founded or unfounded. That's just things that happen in me. And me, the determinist, I'm the same way. Like, all of epistemology collapses. Justified, unjustified, there's no such thing. If one apple falls off the tree and the other apple stays on the branch, which one's right? Well, you can't even ask those questions. And so I think that's part of it. It's introspective, from Rand's perspective at least, it's introspectively self-evident, and it's axiomatic. You show that by the fact that all of epistemology collapses without that distinction. So whether that's satisfying, I mean, there's a lot to say about this. Yeah, but then we'd have to come back to see what is it, because I think often I think Rand would think or the advocate of this view has too narrow a conception of causality. Her conception of causality, not to take too long on this, but is that an entity's actions follow from their nature. They follow from what they are. But then there comes to be a question is, but what are they? And what are their causal powers? And do some things have the causal power to initiate an action? And do most of other things not? Is this something that's unique in nature? And there are such things as unique things in nature. And it's how to understand that, I'm not sure, but that's all I got right now.
And let's plug in we have amazing lecture or discussion on our YouTube channel just from 2 months ago of Greg Salmieri, Ben Bayer, Tristan Deliege, and Mike Maza on this topic. 2-hour discussion, super deep. So if you are interested in this question, it's worth checking out.
Hi, my name is Shelly. I'm a 4th-year medical student, and I'm kind of new to this whole place, philosophy. And I wanted to ask, and maybe in 5 years from now, I will look at this question and be like, well, how could I even, think this way? I'm having a little bit of trouble with the idea that medicine is like not everybody should get it.
It's not a right.
It's not a right.
Yeah.
And this is a new concept for me, and I am starting to understand it more deeply and research it. But there is something that is still not seating completely right, and I wanted to hear more
Can I
about it
answer
from
with
you.
a question? So is food a right?
No.
So why not?
Because you need to get your food in order to survive.
And
It's a thing.
medicine happens immediately, like out of nothing?
Right. That's
So you need a baker to bake the bread so you can eat it, right? You need the doctor to create the medicine and the expertise and the pills to treat you. So what's the difference between the bread and the pills?
I agree. But in the end, we do like donate food sometimes to
Sometimes. I don't.
you.
Do you donate food?
No.
Okay, so why do you want to donate
No, but for
healthcare?
example, a restaurant that is finished, like she can't sell this food anymore. The hours are done.
Okay, so take
You
the pills you don't use that expired and put them in the, outside, and whoever wants that, come on, we'll take it. No, I'm serious. I mean, what gives you the idea? Because I think it's very common, and I think it's very, very soon. And you see, Mamdani already wants to nationalize. Not nationalize. I don't, how do you say it? On a city level? The restaurants in New York. We're gonna create supermarkets that are owned by the government, and they will lower all prices, like healthcare. Obamacare is the same thing. So, if you think about it really in a principled way, let your emotions aside for a second. The fact that you are emoting towards like, oh, but it's not compassionate. Like, let's say a poor, homeless guy just broke his arm, and is limping towards the ER, and he can't pay. In a free society, what would you do? Right? What would you do? Ask you.
So, like, thinking bigger, I agree. I get the ideas, but this is where my problem lies.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I will do if a homeless man limps.
So let me give you the complex answer. If you're a surgeon, or whatever, just an ER doctor, and you're sitting in the ER, and there's like 30 paying patients, and they all have broken arms, and there's a guy limping in, right, has no money. Who are going to tend to first? They're all broken arms. You're going to tend to the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. And then let's say it's 7 p.m. and the homeless guy is still there. You have your own moral choice. You want to go home, be with your kids, or you want to treat him? What do you think? What would you do? No, let her answer. What would you do?
It depends.
It'll take you 15 minutes to cast him.
I think it depends about, like, I would like to hear his life story, maybe. Like,
to make him be more valuable to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you decided he's really nice, you're going to cast him, and 10 minutes go by, you're just finishing the casting, and another guy comes in, another homeless guy with a broken arm. Now another 15 minutes, would you stay? Your kid, your 4-year-old kid, haven't seen you the whole day. You will not. How awful of you.
No, not how awful.
No, I'm just saying.
Obviously, no.
I'm just saying, when Ayn Rand, and took me 2 readings of Atlas Shrugged to get it, when you're talking about your life is yours, that means, she really means it. My life is mine. You know why I'm here? Do you think it's because of you? It's because of me. Right? And you are here because of me. No, you're here because of you. Right? It's not that I don't care about you. There's not this dichotomy of an awful person and or someone who was an altruist. No, if we were all be rationally self-interested, everything will be amazing, because all of us will be individuals going around the world doing what's good for them. It's a contract of merit. If you in a free society don't offer any value to anyone, you will suffer. And it's good that you suffer. It's just that you suffer because you have no value to anyone, right? There is no ghost, hovering around us called God, looking at us or whatever that is to say, oh, you're so bad for not taking care of that person. What she is offering is a radically different perspective on what's good. And your life, what you're doing with your life, is the moral standard. If your 4-year-old waiting for you at home is more important to you than the dying person who just walked into the ER, you are immoral to take care of him. Because in the standard of your life, your 4-year-old waiting for you is more important than this dying person. And nobody can tell you what's more important to you because it's your standard. It's your value hierarchy. The problem is that most people don't do the work of even defining the hierarchy of their standards, so they don't know what to do because they don't have a standard. I don't know if you want to add it. Wait. Nobody. One second.
Yeah, I don't have obviously, I believe that, no one has a right to healthcare. But I just want to say, I think it's very, very healthy that you have this question and this struggle inside you. If you came here and told me, look, I'm new with objectivism, and I'm so excited that in a free society, the homeless will have no rights to healthcare, I would then go to Tal and say, that person creeping me out and make sure she doesn't show up here. So just to say, I think this comes from something very healthy, and I really appreciate the concern. I
just want to add to that because it's nothing should be taking on dogma. Don't listen to Itamar. Don't listen to anyone. You need to make sure that you understand why. They could be sending you ideas on what they think is right, but you have to come to your own conclusion.
And also, sorry, where I was getting at, being benevolent is something nice, and within a particular context, something very nice. So I think the starting point is healthy. It's not like it shouldn't be, oh my God, I feel this guilt because I worry about the homeless. Okay, the point was making.
Yeah, I think part of our joint zeal in answering this question is I wish we were asked these questions more. And the other thing is one has to, for the vast majority of people reading Rand's perspective on this find that shocking, surprising, and it would be jarring to some extent. And if you give a shit about people, you're going to have feelings like that. You will experience compassion for people. You will feel sorry for people that come in. You will feel the tug of, like, shouldn't you kind of do something? Shouldn't somebody do something? And it's like, don't you care? Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's generally coming from a good place. But then what one has to do then is figure out how to sort out emotions of compassion, which I think are natural if you care about life, if you know what it means to experience joy in life, and you know what it means to suffer and to feel pain, you'll be able to empathize with people in a similar situation. But your emotions don't give you guidance in the sense they don't tell you, therefore you should do surgery. Well, no, that's a jump, right? Or therefore you should spend, whenever they come in, you just treat them because I feel a certain way. You can feel a certain way, and it is not a good guide to action, but you should acknowledge the feeling. And the other thing to do is spend some time digging underneath that. Is it just that I feel this because I'm a human being, for Christ's sake? I don't like to see people suffering, and I don't either. Or is it more coming from, I feel a moral obligation? There's a kind of a duty element to it, and it's coming from my moral upbringing. It just one has to sort through some of that kind of thing. Is this being driven by some altruist premises I got raised, or is it just I have some compassion for people? Yeah.
Asked myself this question, and the first thing you said is more suitable to how I think.
Yeah, and then you have to, and then there's no one answer, the one size fits all answer to it. Because you said, if you got your 4-year-old kid, and then there's a second guy comes in, at some point, But I think a lot of people that went into the medical profession would stay. and they don't really come home. If you've ever been the 4-year-old kid of a doctor, it doesn't they stay at work quite often. And yet you might be a doctor's like, I care a lot about my family, and I do put those. So people's hierarchies in terms of what's more important, it varies. And so one of the questions that you asked, and then I think you didn't take in the same way that I was going to ask, was because I was going to ask you straightforwardly, what would you do? And not like, oh, I'm looking for the right answer, but I'm just curious as to what you think you would do in that situation. And you might say, well, I think I would have treated the guy. And then happily Tal asked the follow-up question to try to push the issue is, what if another one came in? And it's kind of like, do you buy your life dime by dime by dime by dime? Or is it just that, at some point you hand them off to another doctor, or at some point you give them a card and say, look, there's a center that deals with indigents. And like, I gotta go. I have a life, So anyway, that's all.
I think the last thing about it, can you give him the microphone? The one thing I would say is that try whenever you're confronted with those things. Whenever you're confronted with those questions, ask yourself those questions many times, but then try to come up with a principle. Because at the end of the day, if you want to stop thinking about this issue and integrate it, so it is a guide to action, is you have to integrate it and move it from the conscious, deliberate mind to the subconscious mind. And so today, after many years of doing that over and over and over again, my emotional reactions are not guides to actions, but I know that they're a result of a lot of thinking. Because, people come to me in events and they want to ask a question, another question, I need to go. So this benevolence, like I want to answer questions to everyone who asks, and I need to do my things. Now my emotions like, okay, enough. I need to go do the thing. And I don't feel guilty about it because I know that now my hierarchy is structured. My emotions are integrated with my thinking. And so I now, in a way, trust my emotions because they are agents or are results of a lot of thinking and integration. So try to create the principle. Try to see how you can talk yourself into emoting this way. And then you're streamlined. Then you're like a Howard Rourke that just knows, knows. Yeah, go ahead. You wanted to ask a question.
It seems to me, first of all, I just want to mention that if you wouldn't treat this person, you would lose your license, at least in Israel. So it's part of your, I think, the consideration that you need to take in account. But I have a question, and it seems to me, it's a very general question. It seems to me, and I really want each of you to answer this question. It seems to me that the world that Ayn Rand created is a heaven to a very successful person and a hell to someone who is not very successful. It seems that in the world, in the philosophy of Ayn Rand, there is a classification of people on the terms of whether they are successful or not. It seems that, at least for someone who read Ayn Rand, try to understand it, but also see the real world and with all its complexity, it seems that Ayn Rand really doesn't have any answer to those who are unsuccessful, and yet we want to keep them part of our society. For example, I'll give you another example. Let's think about a soldier in Gaza, lost his legs, lost his hand. He's useless nowadays. So, you understand the question?
First of all, this myth that Ayn Rand addresses only, or her heroes are all successful, it's a myth. In her book, the vast majority of the good characters have a character journey. They have a character arc. Howard Rourke, at some point, works literally in the equivalent today of a construction site. The principles, though, on how to live a good life apply exactly the same to whether you're a billionaire or whether you start from the slum. It is use your mind to understand, first of all, what you want out of life, and then use your mind to understand how the world works, to connect the dots, and then go after what you want. Now, whether you are Bill Gates, or whether you're born, let's say, the child of Bill Gates, or whether you come out of the slum, this is the same trajectory you have to follow. Now, let's go to the example, because we have to address the difficult questions. the guy who lost hands and legs in Gaza. By the way, today I saw someone jogging who had lost an arm, and I was about to start saying, so much respect for this guy. Anyway, the guy who lost his arms and legs wishes or should wish that he lives in a world of people who follow the principles of Ayn Rand and are successful. Because by being so successful now, we manage to do miracles that only Jesus Christ in the Bible does, including giving you new legs and giving you new arms. We've managed to do every single thing that Jesus considered a miracle, except to bring back people from the dead. You study medicine, maybe we're not that far from that, right? So even that very unlucky, very, very, very tragic situation, he should wish that he lives in a world of, to put simply, Randian heroes, rather than in a Soviet Union where he's going to end up in a sanatorium and die at the age of 30. So the principles, that's why they're called principles, apply everywhere. They apply in the jungle, they apply in Hong Kong, they apply for the billionaire, they apply for the person who wants to come and who comes from nothing and wants to get somewhere.
And I would say, great, very passionate. And I would say to the person without the legs, let's say that I'm that person and I just lost 2 legs fighting, okay? What do I do now with my life? My life has changed, right? I had jogging as a hobby. I played basketball, I have a girlfriend, and so on and so forth. So what does a rational person do with that kind of tragedy? If you think about what Nikos says, the principle still applies. In the context of reality as I have it now, with my limitations, what do I do with my life? Now, the altruist view is like, oh, you're a poor guy, you should now getting, handovers from someone. Right, I don't want to take the context maybe of a soldier, that's very complicated, but let's just an accident, right? I fell off, I don't know, whatever, and I got paralyzed. So the rational person would say, okay, in the context of me being paralyzed or in the context of me having no legs, how can I still live the best life I can imagine for myself in the context of the body of my capabilities and my competencies? And that's something, if people applied more, again, there are miracles that could happen. Like you see people are living amazing lives with really completely being crippled and so on and so forth. So I think if you ask yourself the question of, which I think, here's my real answer to your question. Why did you ask the question? Because I think that the reason why you asked the question is that you're still holding premises, moral premises, that are still altruistic in a way. And I know it's an accusation, but I found myself that when listening to Rand, especially in the For All Forum, answering questions, the superpower she has is to not just understand the question, that's easy. She's understanding the reason why the questionnaire, the questioner asked the question. And so I'm asking you to just reflect a little bit about why you asked that question. I don't know if you're right. He talked about empathy. It has nothing to do with empathy. Well, I think well, if it's all about empathy, but there's something more. There was a moral thing. There was a moral aspect about what Ayn Rand gets and doesn't get, as far as like she's good for the rich, she's good for the successful, she's good for the healthy. No, she's good for everyone. And empathy, we can talk about empathy. Maybe you want to ask a question about empathy.
Yeah, you covered basically everything I wanted to say, but there are two things I wanted to add. One that I don't understand at all, and one is to talk about this is a good world for the successful. What do you mean successful? The successful baker? The guy who runs a bakery and his baguettes are amazing and he has a good business, and is that the successful woman who runs a nail salon, loves what she does? Is it successful, or you're a titan of industry or something? Yeah, okay, but yeah. Okay, so you're saying, hold on. So you're saying level of success is not...
I will make the question more specific, okay?
Okay.
What do you think about a person with autism, dementia, moron in the society of Ayn Rand? This is the question.
Yeah, and she answers
Not
that.
a
Yeah,
person
yeah.
that lost his leg, but still his mind is working properly.
Yeah.
Someone who mentally or cognitively is, in a way, on the arc, like Nico said, there is an arc for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my
Well,
question.
I mean, for people like that, I've actually worked with autistic kids and worked with kids with cerebral palsy and stuff like that, and they're very challenged, and you can form a bond with them, and I don't understand the contrast. So it's the.
If everyone was selfish.
Yeah, if everyone was selfish, they would choose careers that are meaningful to them, and people choose careers working with kids like that because they find it meaningful. They find that it's a way of helping someone that's complicated. It's a difficult task. It's emotionally taxing, often, depending on what kind of disabilities the person has. And there's a kind of feeling of success in watching some of their development, which is real. If you're, so I was talking about, I used to be a gymnastics teacher, and so I worked with kids more in like physical things, but there's also people that work in medicine that deal with things like that. There are people who work in psychiatry, psychology that deal with things like this. These are interesting problems to solve, puzzles and challenges that people in this field and people all day now, you don't have to wait for an Ayn Rand world. I mean, people find this meaningful and not. Yeah, and also from a political perspective, like socially, politically, like objectivism does hold that, first of all, if they're your parents are, in effect, you're kind of a ward of your parents. Your parents take care of you. It's their responsibility as your parents to take care of you and so on. But if you're just sort of on the street or something, I think you would have to depend on charity. And I think there would be reasons to support that. And people do it now anyway. And it's not all out of, I don't think it's all out of altruism. I think there are perfectly valid motives why any human being who cared about life doesn't want to see someone who's close to helpless, just sort of on their own, nobody to help them, particularly children. The guy on the street corner that's been there for 20 years with the same sign, it's like, I have less compassion for someone like that. Kids, that they don't deserve it. And they don't deserve it. And Ayn Rand said, it's a compassion. It's compassion for the innocent is what matters, and something like that. And I don't think there's any sort of world in which we all walk around as steely, unfeeling people that don't connect or relate to anything like that. I mean, it's almost like in a perfect Ayn Rand world, compassion would disappear. We wouldn't feel sympathy for our fellow man. It's not psychologically plausible, even, and it's not philosophically mandated or anything like that. It's just, I think people would be people. I think,
we need to. I want to say one last thing. I was invited to a whole weekend by an organization that is an organization that puts intellectuals together. So I was lucky to be part of this weekend where we learned about 19th century history in America. I was sent, like 600 pages of reporting from the 19th century about what happened in America. I was shocked. It's the unwritten history of America in the 19th century when we were as close to laissez-faire capitalism that we ever been. I don't know if you know, but if you had money in the 19th century, orphanages would not need your money. Orphanages were overly funded. Nobody needed. The orphanages actually said, we don't need any more money. We're good. There was so much money pushed into philanthropy, where the philanthropists were booming, by the way, and they were actually trying to find people that were suffering to justify the money that was coming from the new millionaires who wanted to do good. So if you ask me what really would happen in an Ayn Rand society, the cripples and the demented and whatever would be so much better off, because there's so much goodwill that all of us share that I think is now working against us. because you feel like I'm paying too much taxes, so I don't care about a guy in the street. We destroy benevolence with the welfare state. We destroy, because think about if you kept all of your money. I wouldn't take like 0.0% for anything. You would be wealthy. You could buy 3 apartments, not 1. You have extra money. What would you do with it? Eat more? No, you can't. So you would like, who else needs, help here? Maybe I'll just donate to young students to have free tuition, So you can't even imagine what happened in the 19th century. It's not like we have to imagine it. It already happened. It's just that all the altruists in the world have erased it from our memory, because just see what happened. Not to mention so many other stories about what happens without government regulation. You want to say something?
Yes. One last thing on this. You don't even have to imagine or go to the past, and it doesn't even have to include humans. We do these things today about animals. A couple of years ago, there was a cat in my neighborhood which one leg was, how it's called? Is crippled, politically correct? Paralyzed, okay. So I would go out of my way to feed it, and at some point I realized that I couldn't find the cat, and the neighbor told me, there are like 5 people in the neighborhood who every day take the cat. They've brought it to 5 different vets, and I think one of the neighbors took it at home. So there was oversupply to help an injured animal. So there is healthy benevolence out there. Like, here's an innocent creature. We all want to help it for very good reasons. So I don't think it's even an experiment what would happen. We see it today. There is no reason anyone would want to see, any good person would want to see unnecessary suffering. And if they can help it, that's great, and it creates...
So you can follow Ayn Rand philosophy and still donate and still be...
Obviously, who said... First of all, it's Ayn Rand, but obviously you can do it. Who said you can't do it?
She said charities, it's, again, all of those complicated, go back to your values. If I have surplus of money, right? And all my kids are, I have everything I want. I got everything. Like, what do I do with the extra money? Look, I'm telling you, donors that give us money, I'm shocked. Shocked with people writing me checks. Why? Because of inspiration. You guys are doing a good job. Here's a $10 million check. $10 million. Some people don't make $10 million their whole life, right? So benevolence, some people. Benevolence, just a few. Benevolence is something beautiful that only thrives when you have the freedom, right? And again, I think it was insinuated, there is no contradiction. It's a false dichotomy to think I'm rational or I have benevolence and so on. It's all part of just applying yourself. And the first thing you have to do is to create wealth that then you have to share. So the first question is, do you know how to create wealth? What we do a shortcut. It's like, I don't know how to create wealth and you don't know how to create wealth. So let's take a government and to rule both of us, and they will force us to take money out of us so they can take care of the older, what was the זקנה חולה בזה זה היה של איך קוראים לו? של ברק, כן, של ברק. So anyway, so look, I know that we can sit here for hours, and it's like finish. What I wanted to say is that this group, we chose to do the first day on Thursday for this group because you guys matter a lot. You were attracted to the ideas. You are explorers of the ideas. Some of you are students of objectivism. Some of you are on the process of becoming intellectuals. Some of you, I hope, will donate to Boaz the $10 million that you have on the side. And so what I wanted to say is that be proud, okay? Be proud. I know that sometimes we're always focusing on the negative. Be proud that you have found Ayn Rand, that you are the smart guys who figured out that she has something right to say about the world. Apply it to your own life before you care about politics. Some people are very animated about politics. I admire them. I'm passionate about your life and what the quality of your life. Are you using objectivism to make your life even better? Tomorrow is going to be a completely different day. We're going to have more people here, people that just heard the name Ayn Rand, or they're a friend of a friend who read Ayn Rand. So please, if you're going to be here, be very benevolent, right? and field questions and ask people to ask themselves questions. But tomorrow is going to be a completely different day, and you'll see that the way we're going to present it is a much more kind of introductory level, trying to be good teachers and in a way nudge people to think a little bit more, and more than anything to motivate them to do the first step, which is to go read the book. So thank you very much for coming today. See you tomorrow.